If I'm Stephanie's listing agent selling her $10 million mansion, and I wake up one morning, I'm like, oh, it's going to be a beautiful day. I'm just so excited. I'm drinking my coffee, and a meteorite just comes out of the sky, and I'm just, hey, what's that up there? Is that a plane? What is it? And before I know it, I'm just splat, right? Just got hit by a meteor. Oh my God, I'm everywhere, right? I just got squished by a meteor. What a day. Oh my God, I'm dead. Dead as a doornail. Does that terminate my listing agreement with Stephanie? We all got some more coffee or snackies or whatever it is that you needed. Give you a minute or so to get back as a grace period, as I've mentioned before. If you decide to go take a nap and not come back from breaks, got to boot you from the meeting. That will count against your time. Remember, you only get 3 hours of total missed time. If you miss 3 hours and 1 minute, you fail. You go straight to jail. Straight to jail. Do not pass. Straight to jail. And as much fun as I am, none of you fine folks probably want to hang out with me again. At least for the same class. You can hang out with me again for other classes. That's cool. I like that. Just, most of you don't want to do the same class over. So, real quick, let's just talk about, because this is really going to help with the agency piece. Most of you are probably feeling pretty comfortable with agency. However, I will state that the amount of agency discussions we have in pre-licensing versus the amount of agency discussions you probably have with your firm are complete and utter opposite ends of the spectrum, right? When talking about pre-licensing, we're like exclusive agency and dual agency and what this breaks down to, and seller sub agency and designated dual agency, and we made it sound so like formal. Like there's just gonna be like crazy amounts of discussion and like especially like designated. If you think back to pre-licensing, we always made it sound like some like formal hearing, right? Like, and I as the big shall designate that this person shall in fact only represent said seller, and this person shall in fact only represent said buyer. And it doesn't really happen that way. It's more of like who found who and does it break the rules. So when we're talking about any kind of agency relationships or agency agreements, just as a reminder, because most of you are doing this day in and day out, but you probably aren't thinking about it. If we're talking about seller agency, you're signing a listing agreement, and any time that we say seller agency or buyer agency, understand that the implication is that it is exclusive. Now, there are non-exclusive. So what I mean by exclusive, I mean you are only representing one person, right? Let me provide some additional clarification here. If you were to have an oral buyer agency agreement, what does an oral buyer agency agreement do? What are the kind of the two special things that are in existence with oral buyer agency agreements?
Non-exclusive.
They're non-exclusive, and then there's one other thing that they are.
Unenforceable?
It's not that they're unenforceable. It's that they're for an open period of time, right, Aaron? They can get out of them at any point. We can't bind them to us for a set period of time. They're non-exclusive and open-ended. So there's no set period of time and they can cancel any time. But what does exclusive mean? What do we mean when we say they're non-exclusive?
They can go with the other agents and check other properties too.
Yeah, that's exactly right, Hillary. When we say non-exclusive, it means for them. It means for them. It doesn't mean that we're not going to still give them old car, does it? Because we still owe them all the same fiduciary duties. It's just that we can't prevent them from going and having any oral buyer agency agreements or other agency agreements with anybody else. That's what non-exclusive means in that oral buyer agency agreement. Now understand that you have to understand when we're talking about exclusive versus non-exclusive who we're talking about. So if we say exclusive seller agency, well, that's changing things. That's an exclusive right to sell listing agreement. And exclusive seller agency is implying that it is exclusive with us. Now we've limited their exclusivity to us. They cannot have another listing agent except for us. Just because a buyer agency is not exclusive doesn't mean that we don't owe them old car. Does that make sense for everybody? When we say exclusive, we mean for them. Anytime we're in a relationship, right, we have to be loyal to them. They don't have to be loyal to us if it's non-exclusive. But these exclusive agency agreements force them to be loyal to us as well. So the most common one that we use, that most of you fine folks use, is the exclusive right to sell listing agreement, which is a relationship between whom? Who are the parties in an exclusive right to sell listing agreement?
The agent and the sellers.
And who's the agent?
The firm.
There you go.
Sellers.
Seller of real property and the agent. And if there's a real estate firm involved, then the firm is the agent. That's exactly right. So we can have exclusive seller agency, which would be done by way of an exclusive listing agreement. We can have exclusive buyer agency, which would be done by way of an exclusive buyer agency agreement. And then we can have seller and buyer agency with dual agency. Now we've all figured out, there's no specialized agreement that exists for dual agency. It's a supplement to our actual listing and buyer agency agreements. Special little provision in there where we state, are you authorizing dual agency? Are you not authorizing dual agency? And of dual, do you want designated? So if they're authorizing dual agency on the listing agreement from the get-go, is it automatically going to be dual agency? There you go, Aaron shaking her head. A couple of y'all shaking their head. It's not. Just because we have to have informed written consent to do dual agency, but understand, folks, whether they give you permission or not, every single agency relationship starts out as exclusive representation, doesn't it? When you sign an agency agreement with a buyer, there's no home yet. When you sign a listing agreement with a seller, there's no buyer yet. So we will never know if dual agency is going to arise from the get-go, which means that even if they've authorized dual agency, it is exclusive agency from its inception. I am exclusively representing you, Mr. or Mrs. Seller, when we sign a listing agreement until the time that I'm not. I am exclusively representing you, Mr. or Mrs. Buyer, until the time that I'm not. Every single agreement starts out as exclusive to one party. If we're talking a listing broker working with a seller, when would it become dual agency?
If you brought the buyer.
If who brought the buyer?
If the listing agent brought the buyer.
If the listing agent brought the buyer as well, that would be a type of dual agency, but it can be a little more broad than that.
Another agent at the firm
There you go.
brings the buyer.
If any buyer that is being represented by the same firm that the listing agent works for wants to see that home, that would be dual agency. And of that, we would have to have the discussion whether or not we were going to practice dual, which we call disclosed dual, or designated dual. What about for a buyer? If you sign an exclusive buyer agency agreement with the permission to do dual or designated dual agency, it would be exclusive buyer representation up until the point that what happened?
When you show the property on your own listing of firm, from your firm.
From your firm, right?
Yes.
Yeah. If they want to see any home listed by your firm, that's dual agency. Remember, that's why we impose upon you that the firm is the agent. Is it dual agency if it's one broker representing both parties? Absolutely, that's still dual agency. But that's not the only time it's dual agency. It is the firm that makes it dual agency. Understand, folks, and I told you this, right? I like to get ahead of myself, so you will probably be experts before we ever get to the dual agency section of this course, because it all kind of works hand in hand. You will never, ever, ever have dual agency if two firms exist in a transaction. Keller Williams Coldwell Banker, never going to be dual agency, right? eXp Remax, never going to be dual agency. We call that cooperating brokerage firms. Two different firms cooperating in a transaction, never going to be dual agency. Dual agency arises with in-house transactions only. Now, this just brings up a kind of making you think question, and we've kind of told you about this already. We talked about it on Monday. A broker or firm selling his or her or its own property may not represent or offer to represent a buyer due to obvious conflict of interest. We more have talked about the RPODs, right? What was your obligation under the Property Disclosure Act? And I told you on Monday that you were afforded the same rights under the Residential Property Disclosure Act, but you're not afforded the same rights in regards to disclosure. You can say no representation on the RPOD so long as you produce any material facts elsewhere. Type up a separate document, put it in the MLS, whatever you need to do. But when it comes to conflict of interest, remember we talked about prohibited acts in this license law and commission rulebook, you cannot have a conflict of interest. So can you list your own house, be your own listing broker? Of course you can. But if an unrepresented buyer comes along, can you represent them in dual agency? Absolutely not. What can you do, folks? If an unrepresented buyer calls you when you're selling your own home, what can you do?
I can refer my firm's another agent.
Absolutely. I'm going to pick up the phone. I'm going to say, Hillary, I got a buyer who's interested in my house, girl. I can't help them. Will you help them buy my house and pay me a 25% referral fee? Hillary says, hell yeah, I will, Seth. More money for you, more money for me. Let's do this thing, right? It's dual agency, and it may end up being designated, right, depending on our firm's policies. But I make more money. There's no conflict of interest. Hillary gets a client she didn't have before. It's a win-win-win, isn't it? Completely and utterly legal. It's appropriate to do, for sure. Now, I will go ahead and give you some hint, hint, wink, wink, nod, nod. There's a question on exactly that on your test, right? What can you do if an unrepresented buyer wants to be represented on a home that you're listing, that's your personal home? Refer them out. I haven't looked at your test yet, but I do remember that that one is on this test. So I told you I'd look at your test at lunch and start doing the hint, hint, wink, winks, nod, nods. That's the first one I remember. So we're going to take a look really quick at these exclusive seller, exclusive buyer agency agreements. Not because I don't think that you've looked at them, just because we get so used to doing them, our firm makes us look at them, and I think that we take it for granted and we don't really break them down again. There's also been a couple of changes, and so we're kind of going to look at how it all breaks down. So give me a second. Let's pull those up and take a look. Just make sure I get the most up-to-date one here, because like you folks probably know, a lot of forms were updated in July of this year, including our sales contract, including our agency contracts. Added some additional provisions in them. There we go. We'll just do it this way. Can't find it in zip forms, but I printed off this sample. Can everybody see that? Cool. Like I said, it's not that I don't think you've seen this, because I know every single one of you has. Whether you've done a deal or not, it's been introduced to you in pre-licensing. It's probably been introduced to you in other post-licensing, and your firms probably talk about this as well. So whether you've done a deal, I know that you've seen it. So I just kind of want to talk about some of the individual pieces of it for discussion. And notice too, if you look right here, you can see which form it is. So this is July of 2021. This is the most recent one, where we've had some updates. I'm going to zoom in a little bit here. First piece, just for clarification's sake, that you all probably know very well by now. Let me move my chat box so I can talk to you a little bit more. Is this piece right here. This is that agency that we keep talking about, right? The very first line, the exclusive right to sell listing agreement is entered into between blank, right, as sellers of the real property described below, and blank as listing firm. This is what makes it dual agency, right? Because the firm is the agent, and then you as the individual broker licensee is the extension. So then it goes on to say the individual agent who signs this agreement shall, on behalf of the firm, be primarily responsible for ensuring that the firm's duties hereunder are fulfilled. However, it is understood and agreed that other agents of the firm may be assigned to fulfill such duties if deemed appropriate by the firm. For purpose of this agreement, the term firm, as the context may require, shall be deemed to include the individual agent who signs this agreement and any other agents of the firm. That line right there tells you just about everything you need to know about dual agency. Any other agents of the firm. Let me ask you folks just a very straightforward question. If I was filling out this listing agreement and Stephanie was the seller, right? Stephanie's selling a house. She's got like a $10 million mansion. I'm like, hell yeah, Stephanie, I'm looking forward to that commission, girl. We're going to sell that house. High five. And I sign it and I put, Coldwell Banker, whoever I'm affiliated with as the firm. And then we go down to the bottom. I'm going to sign it and realize that there's a requirement per the rules, the real estate commission rules, that my broker license number needs to be on there. So I'd put my license number, I'd put my name, and I'd sign it on behalf of the firm. Now, number one, realize that makes me a general agent of my firm, doesn't it? Because I just bound my firm to this listing agreement. But number two, if I'm Stephanie's listing agent selling her $10 million mansion, and I wake up one morning, I'm like, oh, it's going to be a beautiful day. I'm just so excited. I'm drinking my coffee, and a meteorite just comes out of the sky, and I'm just like, hey, what's that up there? Is that a plane? What is it? And before I know it, I'm just splat, right? Just got hit by a meteor. Oh, my God, I'm everywhere. Right, I just got squished by a meteor. What a day. Oh my God, I'm dead. Dead as a doornail. Does that terminate my listing agreement with Stephanie?
No.
No. What happens to it?
Goes to another agent in the firm.
There you go. Right? They're gonna draw straws. They're gonna see. They're gonna call up Cassie. Cassie, hey, your best friend Seth that you work with at the same real estate firm. Sorry to say, Cassie, he got hit by a meteorite today. He exploded in 10 million pieces. But hey, it's a really cool meteorite. Also, Cassie, congratulations. You're gonna take over Seth's $10 million listing with Stephanie as the seller. Cassie's like, oh my God, can't believe Seth died. Wait, $10 million? Is that what's the commission? She's like, all right, I'll be right over, right? She's going to be all set for like a second. Then what's going to happen? Cassie's going to pick up the phone. She's going to call Stephanie. She's going to say, hey, Stephanie, I'm now taking over this sale. Bless his heart, Seth was hit by a meteorite today. He's dead. Just so you know, Stephanie, if you like Seth, his services are on Sunday. But don't you worry your pretty little face. I'm still going to be holding your open house on Saturday, girl. Don't you worry. We're going to sell that house, right? That's how it's going to go, right, folks? Because I was never the agent. It was Coldwell Banker, right? So it is alive and well. It's depressing. God bless a meteor. I mean, I guess that's a pretty neat way to go, but it still sucks, right? It's alive and well. Now let's change it up a little bit because you find folks, we'll kind of talk about it a little bit more, cannot operate independently, can you? Go ahead and say no. You can't. You can't. Provisional brokers cannot operate independently because you can't be active without a broker in charge. A full broker can be active without a broker in charge, but we'll talk about that down the road. Anybody know what a full broker who's active independently can and can't do?
Advertise?
There you go, Darren. You can't advertise, right? It's the most worthless kind of broker you can be, right? You are a broker. You can do real estate, but you can't tell anyone you're a broker. You can't pass out business cards. You can't have a website. You can't have a Facebook page, right? You can be a full broker and active without a firm, but you can't advertise. You know what that means? If somebody walks up to you and they're like, you smell like a real estate agent, can you sell my house? And you're like, I sure can. Thanks for noticing I smell like a real estate agent, right? You're not advertising. They just know you smell like one, right? It just on your face. It screams real estate agent. I don't know. Why would most people operate like that? What would be the value to you?
Maybe if you're a flipper, and so you just want to be able to, I don't know, would that even work?
You sure? Yeah, you could. You could sell your own properties.
You
Yeah,
want to sell your own.
absolutely.
Know the rules. Or maybe you want to do it for family and friends,
Yep.
and they know it because you mention it at Thanksgiving. Like, people just know that you're a realtor.
Yeah, all of those would be acceptable. And the other one is if you're not actually doing business and you just, there you go, Rachel, referrals. I see it in the chat now. Referrals. She got me covered. Yeah, Darren and Rachel are right. If you want to do it just for yourself, or if you're only going to do referrals, you can do that. There's no problem. You can be fully active and you can do referrals and get paid directly as a full broker, but you can't advertise. Now, just for clarification, folks, I could do it a little bit differently than y'all can. Why? Because I'm a broker in charge as well. So I could operate independently and be my own broker in charge. And if I'm a broker in charge and independent, I can advertise till I'm blue in the face. And I don't need a firm. So what I would put in here is not the listing firm. I'd put Seth Chauncey. If I did not have a firm and I was a sole proprietor operating as myself, I could put my name in there. Now let me ask the question. If it's just me and I have no firm and I get hit by that meteorite, what does that do to the listing agreement? That's right. Rachel says it'd be as dead as Seth is, right? It is gone, right? There's not even a speck of Seth left. He just got immediately incinerated by this meteorite. Same thing with this agreement. So if I was by myself, Stephanie hadn't heard from me for a while. She gets the obituary. She's like, oh my God, that's why I haven't heard from Seth. He got hit by a meteor. Bless. She's going to call up Philip. Philip, can you list my house? Right? Philip's going to, hell yeah, I can. 10 million. Let's do this thing, girl. Right? That's how these agreements work. It's between the firm. If it's a sole proprietor, though, it would kill it. Everybody with me on that?
Can I ask one question?
You can ask as many questions as you want, Philip.
What if my next door neighbor hired me to sell his house, but the other reason he hired me, he hired me because of our friendship, not because of the firm that I worked with. So I died the next day, and he doesn't want to work with that firm. Can he get out of that contract then?
Here's the thing. Could he go to the firm and say that he didn't want to work with them and ask to get out of it? Sure he can. But does your firm have to let him out of it? No. Not unless there is some kind of specific provision drafted up where he clearly states that the relationship will terminate if something happens to Philip. Could you have something drafted like that up? Sure. But otherwise, it's between the firm and you. Understand, Philip, let's not even say that you died. If you have that listing agreement and you decide to leave Coldwell Banker and go to Keller Williams, it stays with Coldwell Banker unless they give you permission to take it with you. You can't even take them with you.
Should you always tell your client that you're signing this agreement with, that if something does happen to me, you will still be working with Coldwell Banker?
Yeah, hopefully most of us aren't like in such anticipation of something happening to us that we have to disclose that to all of our clients. But yeah,
Stuff happens.
Yeah, it does. Now, here's the funny thing, Philip. In my experience, it really depends on the firm because most firms drop the ball when it comes to this, right? Because this is how these agreements work and this is how the rules work. But most firms don't even know. Do you ever talk to the BIC or any other members of a firm when you're working with somebody? No. And so most of the time, it gets lost. And so if something was ever to happen, it would just basically kind of like fall off the face of the earth for most firms because they wouldn't even bother reaching out. They wouldn't even know to reach out. But it does that how it works, yeah. So they would just assign them to somebody else unless you had an agreement contrary or warn them that if something happened to you, they would have to go and forcefully get out of it. Yeah. Yeah. It's good to know, right? In consideration for firm services and efforts to find a buyer for the property, firm is hereby granted the exclusive right to sell the property on the terms and conditions set forth in this agreement. So this is why it's an exclusive right to sell listing agreement, which says what? Remember from pre-licensing we had three. We had the open agency, exclusive agency, and then exclusive right to sell listing agreement. This one says what? I think we said it on Monday. What's special about this one in regards to the other two types of listing agreement?
You get paid no matter what.
There you go, Philip. You get paid no matter what, right? If your marketing efforts bring the buyer, if the seller finds their own buyer, if the seller clones himself in his basement and his clone wants to buy it, you still get paid, folks. It says no matter what. If this house is sold, you get paid. Doesn't matter where they came from. The other ones, the open agency and the exclusive agency, the seller would retain their right to sell it themselves. Meaning if they found somebody that was not through your marketing efforts, they could say, screw you, I'm not paying you, broker. Sold it myself, get out of here. But we don't give them that right with this one.